Hello everyone and welcome back to Academic Scope. Today we're going to cover GCSE Economics 2.1, the role of markets. Now, the specification requires you to explain what is meant by a market, explain the features of the primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, including the difference between the production of goods and services, explain the difference between factor and product markets, including their interdependence, and you have to be able to evaluate the costs and benefits of specialization and exchange in markets, including for producers, workers, regions, and countries. Once again, notice how the fourth bullet point starts with a command word evaluate. This means an example of a 6-marker they can ask you is evaluate the benefits of specialization for producers. They can ask you for all four: producers, workers, regions, and countries. The most they can ask you on the other 3 bullet points is a 1-marker multiple choice or a 2-marker, but you should still revise them as they're often useful to mention in the 6 markers. Now, let's move on to markets. A market is a way of bringing together buyers and sellers to buy and sell goods and services. A market economy is an economy in which scarce resources are allocated by the market forces of supply and demand. For example, the United Kingdom, even though it's actually a mixed economy because the government does sometimes intervene. A planned economy is an economy in which the government determines how scarce resources are allocated, for example, North Korea. For a market to exist, there needs to be goods and services. These goods and services come from different sectors in the economy, and we'll be going on to that shortly. Now, I'd highly recommend you memorize these definitions, as they're often used in analyze or evaluate with 6 markers, and it's good to define them. The sectors of the economy. The 3 sectors of the economy are primary, secondary, and tertiary. The primary sector is involved in the direct use of natural resources, such as the extraction of basic materials and goods from the land or sea, such as extracting crude oil. The secondary sector is involved with all activities in economy concerned with manufacturing or construction. And below you can see the difference between the two. And lastly, the tertiary sector is involved in all activities of an economy that involve the idea of a service. Even though it's not mentioned, the quaternary sector might come up and is involved with high-level research and development, such as AI or quantum computing. Now, all of these sectors play a part in markets, and the factor and the product market are defined in the specification, so you must remember these. A factor market is a market in which the services of the factor of productions are bought and sold, such as land, labour, or enterprise. You sell your labour in the factor market in return for wages. However, a product market is a market in which the final goods or services are offered to consumers, businesses, and the public sector. For example, you buy groceries from Asda or Texo, and these are the product markets. Now, their interdependence lies in households. Households are involved in the product and factor markets. They consume the goods and services that are produced, and they supply their labour to firms, which in turn pay them wages. Households then use these wages to buy more goods and services. So, the interaction between product and factor markets involves the principle of derived demand. Even though it sounds confusing, I promise you, it's quite simple once you get the hang of it. Derived demand is defined when a factor of production or a product is not demanded for itself, but is dependent on the demand for the product it helps to produce. For example, some precious metals are used in Apple iPhones. These precious metals will not be demanded if Apple stops manufacturing iPhones, and they're only demanded for those reasons. Exchange is also mentioned in the specification. It is the giving up of something that the individual or firm has in return for something they do not have but wish to possess. Specialization. This is very important as they do ask 6 markers on this quite often. Specialization is a process by which individuals, firms, regions, and whole economies concentrate on producing those goods that they are best at producing. This enables them to gain more benefits such as large economies of scale. So, as you can see below, these are the benefits and costs of specialization for workers, and it is quite easy to get 5 or 6 on a 6 marker about this. You start off by saying a benefit or a disadvantage depending on the question. For example, increased skill. By specializing, workers become more skillful and knowledgeable about their work, and can result in them earning more money. And then you give an evaluation. For example, boredom. Doing the same job every day may become boring and lead to demotivation. Remember, in the actual test, you should expand on this a bit more and not just write one sentence. Other benefits for workers are they can work in their natural strengths, they have increased job satisfaction because they do what they're good at, and they can increase their standard of living by buying more goods and services. Some costs are de-skilling as they lose their ability to do other jobs, and if the markets change and demand for the good they produce falls, then they won't be able to find another job, seen in unemployment. Now, moving on to benefits and costs of specialization for producers. Producers can gain higher output if their workers are specialized, and higher productivity. This allows them to gain economies of scale and expand their business, earning more revenue and thus more profit. If the workers are specialized, producers can provide more higher quality goods which will increase their demand, and it saves them time. Some costs for producers are dependency. So, production will depend on all parts of the process working well. If even one part stops, such as a technical fault or strike, they won't be able to produce anything. As output increases, costs may rise, leading to a fall in profits. And labour turnover is especially irritating for producers, as workers leave their jobs due to boredom. It takes time and money to train new workers. Lastly, we have benefits and costs for regions and countries. These are quite similar. For example, you still have economies of scale. More jobs leads to more investment and job creation. In addition, the government will lose less money by giving out benefits and will gain more government revenue from income tax and corporation tax. International trade will increase, there's an improved standard of living for its people, and has more government revenue. Example of some costs for countries and regions are negative externalities, overexploitation of natural resources, and unemployment if the demand shifts. Remember, you can go back and see the explanations for more, and I will be releasing detailed notes on this very shortly, so keep a lookout on the website, and make sure to join our Discord server below to join a community of like-minded students. Thank you for watching Academic Scope, and hope you come next time for 2.2, Demand, where we start looking at the role of demand, price elasticity of demand, and we will soon move on to supply. Thank you.